Hey everybody, so recently I took this Ford Ranger out and did a snowy off-road review with it and decided it's a good mid-size truck. But in this video, we're gonna put that claim to the test with a comparison. So right here, we have the 2019 Ford Ranger XLT FX4, and right there, we have the 2019 GMC Canyon All-Terrain. In this video, we're gonna walk around them, find out what makes these trucks tick, then we'll get out there on the road, do a winter tire comparison, and then talk about which pickup is better, so stay tuned. All right guys, before we go anywhere, let's just talk about the numbers here. So this Ford Ranger with four-wheel drive gets 8.9 inches of ground clearance. It certainly just visually looks like more than the Canyon, and it is. This Canyon with four-wheel drive and as a crew cab gets just 8.2 inches of ground clearance, so the Ranger handily wins in that category. And yeah, you guessed it, when it comes to approach angle, the Ranger absolutely kills it. So this Canyon, with that air dam on there, only gets a 17.7 degree approach. The Ranger, by comparison, is 10 degrees better, just a little more actually, at 28.7 degrees of approach. So departure is better on the Ranger as well, and this one I can really show you from the back too. So here on the Canyon, look at that spare tire. It's so exposed, it hangs down so low, and then even those corner bumper steps come down a little lower than a regular bumper would. This is 22.6 degrees of departure angle, and then when we walk over here and take a look at the Ranger, if we go from the same angle, you'll see that you cannot see the full-size spare at all. It's down there, but it's really nicely tucked up and out of the way, which is great for off-roading. And the Ranger offers you just over 25 degrees of departure. So in my recent Ranger review, I complained about how this truck sounds. To me, it just does not sound that great. So let's let you listen to them and compare. I'm gonna start up the Ranger, we'll start up the Canyon, and you tell us which one you think sounds better. But remember, this Canyon is fitted with a performance exhaust, so it definitely has an advantage here. These automakers definitely have different strategies when it comes to powertrain. First, the new Ranger. Only one engine choice for every single Ranger in North America. That is a 2.3 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine that makes 270 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque, and it's hooked up to a 10-speed automatic. Now over here in the Canyon, you actually have three engine choices: a base 4-cylinder, you can get a small 4-cylinder diesel, or you can get this, what is easily the most popular engine choice. It's a 3.6 liter V6, and it makes just over 300 horsepower and just over 270 pound-feet of torque. So the Canyon takes the horsepower crown, but the Ranger definitely takes the torque crown. So how does this whole Canyon package come together? Well, this 3.6 liter V6 is plenty powerful, but it definitely never offers the kind of punch in the gut power you get out of the turbo in the Ford. When you bury your foot in the Ford, you really feel this boom, there's the power. Here in the Canyon, bury my right foot, and it's more like, oh, there's the power. You know, it's not really that hit of turbo. And overall, I'm sure that the Ranger is the quicker truck. It absolutely feels like it. And the one thing I've knocked this engine for before, this V6, is that it makes peak torque and peak horsepower really high in its rev range. So, you know, you really have to wring this engine out to be able to get all the power out of it, and that's the advantage of having a turbo, you know, is that engine in the Ranger makes all of its torque way down low, so you really feel it come on when it hits. And like I showed you before, this truck has a cold air intake on it and a GM performance exhaust, which is supposed to unlock a couple extra horsepower. I haven't driven a regular Canyon in a while to sort of compare, but you know, just comparing to the Ranger, there's no doubt the Ranger takes the power. And now that they're flipped around, let's take a look at the rear end on these trucks. So first of all, you get that convenient bumper step on the Canyon. No such thing over there on the Ranger. Now, taking a look at the tailgates. Canyon has the damped drop in the tailgate. Let's see about this new Ranger. Nope, no damping there. Now inside the bed, this Ford bed is exactly 5 feet. The Canyon bed there is 5'2", so it has a slight size advantage. Really slight, but you can see it better from this angle. If you look, they're pretty well lined up at the C-pillar. Walk back, walk back, walk back. And you can see that 2-inch difference and the advantage that the Canyon has. Now, one advantage though that the Ranger has, and something I really like, are the tie downs. So there's one tie down all the way at the back there, one up at the front, that one's buried in snow. But then this is a neat tie down, sort of 3/4 of the way back. You get this lower tie down in the wall, and then you get 2 cutouts in the wall right there and right there where you can add your own tie downs. Now, the Canyon only gets the one ring back there and one up at the front. That one's buried, so we'll look at that one. Now the Canyon does get more cutouts, so you can customize the tie downs and you can put them in any of those holes, but sort of right out of the box, the Ranger actually has more tie downs in more convenient locations. Now we're not pulling any trailers in this video, but still interesting to look at the hitch setups. So there's your light connections on the Canyon. You get the 7 and the 4 pin, and the actual hitch and the safety chain connections are fairly easy to get to. Now over here on the Ranger, basically the exact same light setup. There's the 7 and the 4 pin, and then down below, those safety chain hookups are actually a little bit easier to get to. They stick out a little further than on the Canyon. But you know what, the most important thing is that the light hookups are up there above the bumper, so both of these trucks are pretty much comparable when it comes time to hook up. So what about straight up truck utility? Well, the Ranger wins again, at least on paper. This truck can tow more and haul more than the Canyon. Now, a diesel powered Canyon to Colorado, it can do 100 pounds more than this truck at 7,600. So the Canyon Colorado still has the towing crown, but only with the diesel. The thing with payload, as many of you know, is that max number is usually not that close to what the actual number is for your specific truck. So once you get a crew cab and you add on 4-wheel drive and, you know, a bunch of different options, you're taking away from your payload rating. So let's actually look at the door jamb stickers and see what these specific trucks are rated to haul. So let's take a look at the payload on the sticker. This Ranger is good for 1,413 pounds of payload, which is actually not too far off the max number, which is pretty nice. Let's go see what the Canyon can do. So how about the real world payload on this Canyon? Let's take a look. 1,339 pounds. So just a little bit less than the Ranger, but that goes to show you if you get crew cab 4x4s, the Ranger is actually good for a little bit more payload. So now let's talk tires. So here on the Ranger, we get a set of Hankook Dynapro ATMs. And Hankook describes these tires as all season, and some sizes of this tire get the 3-peak mountain snowflake, but these ones do not. So while they are an all-terrain, and Hankook says they're okay in the winter, they don't get the 3-peak snowflake, which these tires do. These are General Grabber Arctics. These are dedicated winter tires. They have the 3-peak snowflake rating, and I just want to visually show you guys the difference. So if we get down close to this Hankook, you can see the tread pattern. There is some siping. Sipes are those small little grooves that run across the big sort of tire lugs. There's definitely some siping here, but not a ton of it. Now that's the Hankook. Look at the difference when you look at what is a dedicated winter. Check out all of the siping in this tire, which is just gonna help you not only have more little biting edges, but also shed any water or snow or even mud that might build up in that tire. So yeah, now take a look at this, where I actually go out and I'm gonna run these on the road and try to do a real world test. Okay, so now I want to do a real world braking test just to show the difference between these two tires. So here on the Ranger, we have a set of Hankook Dynapro ATMs. Now these are stock tires that you can get right from the factory on this truck. I'm gonna get up to 50 kilometers an hour here, and I'm using one of the telephone poles as my brake point. I'm gonna try to brake when my passenger side mirror lines up with the pole. All 4 tires will be on the snow. There's 50, and brake. Okay, so that feels like a pretty decent amount of sliding. I'm gonna mark where we landed with my little Canadian flag here. We'll do one more run just to sort of make sure I got it right, and then we'll get the Canyon and we'll do it with that truck. Okay, so this is not scientific. I want to get a good sense that I'm doing this correctly, so we're gonna run the Ranger one more time just to make sure. So let's get her up to 50. There's 40. Okay, there's 50. There's 50. Coming up to the pole, and brake. Oh! That was just slightly longer than the last one, but that's actually good. So that shows me that at least we're sort of in the right region. All right, everybody, now it's the Canyon's turn. So here we have General Grabber Arctics. These are dedicated winter tires. I've already shown you the visual difference. Now let's see what the braking distance is like. So let's get her up to 50, hard up to 50, hard up to 50. There's 50, hold, 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 and lock up. Nice. Well, probably pretty close to what you might expect the difference between an all-terrain and a winter would be. It's got to be at least 10 feet, maybe more. All right, so here we are out on the open road in this GMC Canyon. So first of all, I want to say that you just watched the braking test to see how the tires did, but there is another factor at play in that test, and that is weight. So here in the GMC, this truck is 4-wheel drive, crew cab with the 5-foot 2-inch bed. This truck weighs in at 4,162 pounds, whereas that Ranger, also a crew cab, 5-foot bed, and also 4-wheel drive, that truck weighed in at 4,440 pounds. So you're looking at about just under a 300-pound difference, about 280 pounds between these two trucks. So I'm sure that little bit of extra weight did not help the Ranger stop. Now, talking about those configurations, that is one thing that's a little disappointing about the Ranger, is that you only get one powertrain option, and if you get a super crew, so you get the crew cab, you only get a 5-foot bed. If you get the super cab, so the smaller cab, you get a just over 6-foot bed, but there's no options there. So you only have one bed length to fit with each body style. Here on the Canyon, if you opt for this crew cab model, you have the choice. You can get the 5-foot bed, or you can get a 6.5-foot bed, and it's just nice to have those choices. And you know what, that also goes with the powertrains. Here in Canada, you can't even get a 2-wheel drive Ranger. Ford is only selling 4x4 Rangers up here north of the border. Okay, so how about ride and handling? Well, there's not a significant difference here, but I will say that the steering ratio here in the Canyon feels slower, and the wheel is just lighter in general. So the Canyon comes across feeling sort of light on its feet and kind of nimble. It also doesn't roll that much through the corners, so it stays really smooth, whereas the Ranger has sort of heavy steering wheel weighting. It has a very direct steering ratio, so that truck comes across feeling heavier, and it is heavier, 300 pounds heavier, so there is an actual weight difference, but the way it drives just sort of accentuates its weight. The fact that this all-terrain is the most off-road ready Canyon is a little bit disappointing. Now, if you go to the GM Twins, you can get the Chevy Colorado ZR2, and the ZR2 is a great truck. I love that little truck, but if you're going GMC, this is what you get for off-roading, and it's really not that great of a package. You get that air dam up front. That thing is going to get ripped off right away. You do not get a great approach angle or departure angle for that matter. The spare tire in the back hangs down really low. There really are a number of reasons why this truck off-road is definitely going to be worse than that Ranger is. So what makes up this all-terrain package? Well, you're getting specially off-road tuned suspension, just like over there in the FX4. You get hill descent control, which the Ford has, but the Ford also has the trail control system, which is off-road cruise control. This does not get anything like that. The Canyon here gets 17-inch cast aluminum wheels. That's also part of the all-terrain package. And then most of the rest of the stuff is really just styling. You get the body color bumper and grille surround. You get the stitch stitching on the seats, along with the badges. A couple other things like the power driver's seat also comes along with this all-terrain package. But you know what, at the end of the day, for an off-road package, this kind of just pays more lip service to off-roading than really making an off-road truck. Now, I know one of the questions you're gonna ask is about fuel economy, and I have a sad answer for you. The Ranger that we have only has about 850 kilometers, maybe 900 by now on it, and the break-in, according to the owner's manual, isn't fully done until 1,000 miles or 1,500 kilometers. So you know what, rather than do the comparison but then have an asterisk, we're just not going to do it at all, because you know I wouldn't be able to give you sort of a reliable number on Ranger fuel economy. But I can tell you what the numbers are on paper. Okay, we've made the jump over here into the Ranger, and let's keep on talking about these two trucks, and we're gonna start off with the interior. So overall, sort of blanket statement, the interior on the GMC is nicer. Now, why do I think that? Well, the Ranger here has a lot of this cheap feeling plastic. A lot of the buttons down here in the center stack are really small, and same thing, just black plastic. Even the buttons here on my steering wheel, crappy black plastic. In the Canyon, the one thing they do that I really like is the buttons on the steering wheel are wrapped in like this rubberized material, which just feels really nice. And then down in the center, you'll see they have that bank of toggle switches. I really like those toggles as well. They're easy to use, and you know, just something that looks a little bit different than just, you know, a small butt. Couple other things about the interior. First of all, both these trucks get these little cubby cutouts basically up here in the dash, which is great for stashing stuff. But the one in the GMC is deeper, so you can just get more stuff in there, and it's actually going to stay in there, which I like. The other thing too on this truck is there's no controls on the back of the steering wheel, which is really great real estate to use, whereas the Canyon has the volume and the seat controls on the back. I think that's really smart. Overall, there's nothing really wrong with this Ranger interior wise, but if you're stacking them up, you know what, the Canyon's a little nicer. And right here, it's worth mentioning that this Ranger is an XLT, so it's the middle trim, one down from Lariat. The Canyon is an all-terrain with leather, which is one step down from Denali. So both of these trucks are actually pretty decent direct competitors, because they're both one step down from the full-out luxury trim. Okay guys, time for a real world test of the back seats. Now both of our trucks here are crew cabs, so we have the biggest back seats available, and the Canyon here does have a slight advantage, about an inch over the Ranger, so let's see which one I fit better in. For the front seat, I sat up here, I pushed it all the way forward until my knees hit, and then I backed it off about 2 inches. The point is, I'm gonna do the same thing in both trucks to make sure that this is even. So, my knee room is not bad. I have enough. If I was sitting up here, I could definitely fit here. My feet are sitting a bit tall, you know, my knees are up a bit. The issue here though is headroom. I am basically on the roof. I'm not exactly pressed against it, and if I was sitting here and we were going down the highway, I'd be good, but one bump and I'm gonna smash right into there. So headroom is not great, and for the record, I stand about 6'2". So now let's look at the Ranger, and as I mentioned in my other review, a child seat just barely fits without touching the front. There's just a tiny bit of space between those two seats to make sure they don't touch. But yes, you can fit a child seat into a Ranger, I can confirm, and it's been pretty comfortable for Otis back there. He's been loving it. Now let's see how I fit back there. Probably not quite as easy as him. Okay, so I got the front seat set up in basically the same position. Oh yeah, wow. So on paper, this seat is smaller. There's a little bit less leg room, but you know what? I have about the same knee room, but my feet are lower. My knees aren't quite as tall, which is actually comfortable. It's more comfortable. And then headroom, I don't have a lot more, but even in the Canyon, I couldn't even fit my hand between my head and the roof here. I can get my whole hand through there. So, I mean, if you hit a big enough bump, I'm probably still gonna go into the roof, but I have enough clearance here to say that the back seat of this Ranger actually feels a little bit better than the GMC, despite what the numbers tell you. So in the battle of the crew cabs, you got to take the Ranger. So another thing we have to discuss is pricing, and this is where the packaging choices made by both brands really do come into play. So this Ranger in Canada starts at just over 30 grand, almost 31 actually, $30,969. Whereas in the States, the Ranger starts at $24,300. Now, like I mentioned, here in Canada, this truck is 4-wheel drive only. You can't get a 2-wheel drive, so I think that's where part of where that price gap comes from. Now, if you want to talk about an XLT model like we have here, in Canada, you're looking at about $38,000. In the States, you're looking at just over 30, about 31. But that truck in the States does not have 4-wheel drive. That's only a 2-wheel drive, whereas every Ranger I talk about in Canada does have 4-wheel. So how do those numbers stack up? Well, this Canyon here in Canada starts a little bit cheaper, $29,945. So, you know, roughly $1,000 cheaper to start, but there's a catch. So the Canyon at starting price is 2-wheel drive. 2-wheel drive 4-cylinder. Now here in Canada, they package 4-wheel drive with the V6, which is really interesting. So if you want to get a base 4-wheel drive Canyon, you're gonna be paying a little over $35,000. So when you look at that comparison, 30 grand for a base Ranger with 4-wheel, or 35 for a base Canyon with 4-wheel, the Ranger is actually looking pretty dang good. I should also mention that in the States, the Canyon here starts just a little under $24,000. So basically starting prices are very competitive. And then once you get up into an all-terrain like we have here, the price on this truck here in Canada is about $43,000. So when you're looking at sort of how these two trucks are outfitted as they sit, the Ranger also comes across looking pretty good. So after driving around in these two trucks, doing the specs comparison, I do believe one of these packages is stronger than the other. That would be the 2019 Ford Ranger. This truck offers good value in the segment, a punchy little turbocharged engine, add on to that best-in-class towing, and you know what, a pretty decent back seat for carrying people. And I think it's hard to argue with this package, which makes it safe to say that the Ford Ranger is back in North America. So as always, guys, go down below, hit subscribe, and come back to the channel for the latest news, views, and real-world reviews.